everybody, and welcome to my second channel. If you don't already know, my name is Karsten. I am the host of the Words With Me podcast. I'm also an engineer. I work with a nonprofit, and I am a dancer as well. So the reason I wanted to make this video specifically is, number one, with the second channel, I'm trying to make more room to have commentary videos, just general catch-ups, basically anything that I feel doesn't actually fit in the podcast, just to have a place to put it. I was reflecting on this past month that I've had and really just taking the time to appreciate what I've been able to do, but at the same time look back on how stressful it was at times, because when I tell you March was the most stressful point that I've had, or the busiest I've been in my life, I am not exaggerating. So as I said before, I'm an engineer, so I had not one but two work trips in Houston. The first one was for an engineering conference, and the second was for a visit that I had to conduct. And on top of that, I had back-to-back performances that I had to do with my company that I'm now a part of. And I wasn't anticipating it, obviously, because it wasn't the plan. If you were thinking to do back-to-back performances and back-to-back work trips, you probably wouldn't do it. And it all worked out, and I'm grateful it worked out. But again, the reason I wanted to come on here was specifically to talk about work-life balance and kind of my opinion on different things, being adjacent to dance industry, but also having a full-time job. And me and my sister, we've been dancing together for a long time. We've been by each other's side. We're twins, so we support each other 100%. And I was sending her articles about dancers who either pivoted or professionals who still made time for their dance career. And I realized that there's not a lot of people that, I meet or that I kind of come across that work full-time jobs and also pursue a dance career. And coming from that background and seeing some of those different careers and how far they can go from a different perspective now, it makes me realize, how fortunate I am to have the space to be able to do the things that I do. But at the same time, it's made me reflect on, hey, if I had made this decision, what would my life have actually panned out to be? So if you couldn't already guess, as an engineer and working with a nonprofit, I'm usually busy. I have moments where it's not as busy, but overall, you have your ups and downs. In thinking about all the things that I have going on, I think something I'd want to discuss more is probably work-life balance. And not that I'm an expert at it, because I'm not. I still have my moments where life gets a little more heavy and work gets a little heavy, and it's just working to find the balance of the two. But I am fortunate to have the time and the space to pursue the interests that I have in a way that works for me. And so I would say the most important thing with work-life balance is remembering the things that you want to pursue. And for my own perspective, I've been in my position for almost 4 years now, and I first started and I was gung-ho about everything. I was ready to just prove myself, to just get into this full-time big girl job. And over time, I feel that there was kind of this fear that I had, or maybe just this worry that I was losing myself in the process, and I didn't want that to be the case. And so when I started dancing, it was not after college, but towards the end of college, and I was trying to find studios because I wasn't really connected to the community. The most dance experience I had was in high school on my team, and so I wanted to find a way to take adult classes. And I had a stint with my sister when we would take classes kind of after school, and the studio was like kind of a kid studio. It was catered to kids, so we would just pay for the class after and leave, but we didn't really have that connection. And so the first studio I went to was Millennium Dance in Orange County, and that's where I started taking some jazz funk classes to kind of get into the groove of things. And over time, I got more comfortable and started taking heels classes, and I think that gave me an outlet. Number one, it's great for mental health, exercise, but I wanted to keep growing and improving at something that I really enjoyed. And I also didn't want to find myself looking back years later and thinking, hey, what if I had actually given this a shot? So long story short, that's how I started dancing, I guess, more consistently as an adult. And that's how I found myself here, kind of growing and being in the company. And now that I'm in the dance company, it's Vixen's Dance. We are a heels dance company, and so we had two back-to-back performances that we had in March. And one was for a competition, and the other was for a showcase, even though we're not really a competing team. But long story short, I had to balance my work life and my dance life kind of in a very extreme way. And the thing that I guess is kind of ironic when I think about it, the things that you pray for, the things that you try to manifest, or just the stuff that you desire, right? It's great when it happens, but when it all starts happening at the same time, it gets a little much. And that's kind of the position that I found myself in last month specifically. I will say for what I do, the reason why it works so well is because I do work from home. So I'm usually out in the field maybe, 2-3 times a week, but I do primarily work from home. So that gives me the flexibility in my evenings, after hours, weekends to be able to dance, to take classes, to be a part of projects. And that's something that I feel like I just need for myself because I need to have that outlet. But I know if I was in a different position, it wouldn't work well at all. And the other thing about being an engineer, obviously, if you're in a good position, things like that, you do have a bit more financial freedom. And that's something else that I realize is definitely an advantage, especially when you're either dancing with people who they work a full-time job, maybe they work part-time, or some people who are fully pursuing industry dance and who are going for that 100% of the time, which is great. And I really just admire dancers that I'm around, the people who kind of go all in and pursue it, who get tours and the videos, because you're really living in your passion. And the key to that is being able to make your passion something that you're able to do full time and be able to make a livable income off of. And I think that's great. But the flip side of that, from what I've seen, there's not a guarantee as far as being a dancer, how much money you'll make in a month, if you're going to have stable income. And I say that because the end of high school, a lot of people that I danced with were kind of more interested in pursuing commercial dance, or at least that's what they were saying at the time. But I wanted to be an engineer, and part of that was just because I was interested in the subject. But also, there's money to be made, and money's not the only reason, but I'm fortunate enough to be able to have that stability in my life, and I know not everybody can say the same, so it's definitely a privilege for me. And, again, I'm not an expert, but I do take pride in being able to do so much, even though I know I can't do everything. But I think it's kind of a testament to how much I've been able to find a balance and really find what works for me. And that kind of brings me to another point, talking specifically about dance. So I had to get comfortable realizing that there may be certain levels or certain things that I either can't do, won't be able to do, just because I do work a full-time job. So I'm not the dancer that's going to be, at auditions, trying to book tours, trying to book music videos. I'm always open to projects, opportunities, performances, and I'm fortunate that that's found me because that's something I wanted. But I think for myself, realizing, hey, this is only going to go so far in my life, and there's only so much space that I have, because I am not the type of person who is going to quit my job to pursue dance full time. If I was going to pivot, if I was going to leave to a different industry, that's one thing. But myself, that's just not my dance journey, and that's not my story. And it's okay to kind of admit that and own that for yourself. But one thing that I think doesn't get talked about a lot is just being able to find creativity in certain things. So in my case, sure, I'm not going to be auditioning and booking tours because that's not my journey. That's not where I want to be. That's not my goal. But the fact that I'm able to carve out a path that works for me, that I can find a space to take classes, to get that industry training, to just be able to see so many things is what I appreciate the most. And so, yeah, it's you might not be able to do everything, but you can find a way to kind of creatively pursue your passions in a way that still works. So maybe it's in a way that still allows you to have stable income, or a way that allows you to make time for other things. So for myself, nonprofit work, that's something that I'm also passionate about. So again, it's just finding ways to kind of carve that space for your passions, but doing it in a way that's sustainable. And I realize that I do a lot. And so when I need to rest, when my body is telling me it's time to stop, I relax, I shut down, because I still have to keep going for myself. And I think something that motivates me to keep going, to keep pursuing this work-life balance, is that I just want to fully be myself, if that makes sense. Like, I want to have a full understanding of who I am as a person. I don't want to leave any stone unturned in that sense, and just kind of come into the fullness of who I am as a person. And so I think as a professional and other professionals I've met, it can be tricky trying to make that space, because we're always worried about perceptions. We're worried about, I don't know, maybe seeming unprofessional, but we're humans, and there's so many sides to us that I don't think are always explored or shared because of those perceptions. And that kind of reminds me of another motivation I had. So I didn't want to become the person where all I did was work, or all I did was talk about my job, or all I did was pursue advancement. And like, career advancement is great, and my career is, going great as well. But I've had so much time to kind of reflect on who I am and have a better understanding of myself, that work is still work, but it's kind of taken a back seat as far as how I treat it and how much space I give it in my life. So that's kind of where I am with that. I think for myself, kind of being adjacent to the industry now, so I would say like I'm not fully in it, but like my toes are dipped in it in a pretty unique way. But when you're around other creative people, I will say, or people who kind of make more of an effort to pursue certain passions full time and maybe don't have the time for a full time job or don't want a full time job, it's always working through other things that you have or other opinions that you have. So within dance, right? I think you see a lot of the successes and the highlights and fame, fortune, whatever you want to call it. You just see all the great things, but I think I know for sure that all that glitters is not gold, and there's a lot of hard work and struggle that's with that. I don't think anything that's really worth having is without struggle in a sense of the word. But yeah, there's a lot of issues and things that come up just having finances to do it, having to work a part-time job, maybe figuring out what it is you're going to do when you're not working or when you're not booking things. And I can say that because I'm not really in the industry and I have something to fall back on. But yeah, I think there's a lot that's not really shared or stated about, I guess, the downsides of being in that industry fully. And because I'm not a full-time dancer, I think it's best to kind of leave that specific topic to someone who's actually in it. But yeah, I mean, I will say that we just see a lot of the highlights, and we see people's Instagram stories and Instagram reels, and we just see all their class videos and music videos, and we don't see a full picture of what it actually takes to get there. And I know it's a lot of hard work just knowing other people who are in that industry, but I'm fortunate enough that that's not my story, because again, that's not something that I wanted for myself, but it's also something that does not work for me because of where I am and because of what I'm doing as a professional. Now that I have kind of finished dumping my brain, I wanted to get into some tips for work-life balance, because again, like what I was saying earlier, I don't always hear from people who dance in one way or another and also have a full-time job, at least having a full discussion of it. So some of the things that I think are important when it comes to work-life balance. So I would say the first is making sure you listen to your body when you're pursuing other passions and other things. So yes, carve out the space, make the time to pursue what it is that you want, but don't feel pressured to do any and everything. And like I was saying before, a lot of the stuff that's happening in my life I prayed for. So being able to dance, being able to have this type of job, being a part of a nonprofit that helps Black women and girls in STEM, those are all things that I wanted. And things don't always happen the way you think they will. So in my case, it just so happens that everything decided to happen at the same time. And so hence March being the busiest time of my life. And yeah, I think just listening to your body and not feeling rushed to do any and everything is important. And really, when it comes to like a work-life balance, that when I'm thinking of it, especially having a full-time job, is being in control of your schedule and your time, because it's very, 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 very easy to get overbooked, to be overcommitted, to kind of lose control of your own time and your own schedule because you just want to do any and everything and you want to have the time. And unfortunately, we can't always do everything. So this scenario, like in March, right? This was something that was kind of out of my control. So the performances were already confirmed before the work trip got confirmed. And because work is work, in some ways it has to take priority over certain things that I'm doing. And so that's how that happened with back-to-back work trips and back-to-back performances. And so in that scenario, again, some parts were out of my control, but as a general tip, just be on track of your schedule and your time, because time is limited and time is so important and valuable. And especially when I think about all the commitments that I have, I know that I am doing what I can to carve out that time, and I'm doing what I can, actively doing what I can to make sure that the schedule actually works for me and for what I need in my own life. And it's not always easy. And something else I would say is just being realistic with yourself about certain things. And I've had this conversation with my mom a lot, just getting frustrated because maybe there's something I want to do. There's a show I want to see. There's a trip I want to take. There's just a fun project I want to do, things like that. And for whatever reason, usually because of work, I'm not able to do it. And that can be frustrating, like very, very frustrating. So just be realistic with how much time you have, and just understand that sometimes you have to mind the business that pays you. And it's okay if you don't have time to do any and everything in your mind. If you stuck around to the very end of this video, I just want to say thank you for listening to me brain dump and talking about work-life balance a little bit. It's a work in progress for me, honestly, but I am very happy that I've been able to do the things that I have been, and I'm just hoping that I can continue pursuing the things that I love and that I'm interested in, but also making the time to protect my mental health and to protect my physical health and everything in between. But if you have more questions about work-life balance, or there's something that I said that kind of sparked an interest, let me know. Leave a comment. You can also find me on Instagram at Karsten Ashley Bush, and you can listen to my podcast on YouTube and your favorite podcast listening platform at Words With Me Podcasts. Thanks, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.